Damon here of Ethical Ball. Jared and I recorded an episode that I did not realize was 3 hours long. So I am going to go ahead and the Paper Plate Award segment, which Jared mentions towards the beginning of the show, I'm going to cut that into its own episode and I'll release it later in the week prior to the Super Bowl, just so it's not one giant 3 hour episode. But everything else will be just in this one. Please enjoy.
Welcome to episode 25 of 22 Man Game with Jared and Dame. I'm Jared. That's Damon. It is Sunday, February 1st, 2026 at 12:25 p.m. Good omen for the 25th episode. How are you doing on this fine afternoon that still feels like morning because we got up pretty late, Damon?
And we as a stretch, I got up much later than you. You were like, "Yeah, I've been doing stuff for a couple hours," and I was like, I opened my eyes. Um, I'm doing okay. I Listeners maybe they can tell there's a slight difference in my voice. There's a couple reasons. The woke up day I think is probably the smallest reason, because I don't feel like it really takes me that long for my voice to sound normal. Um, but yesterday I helped our mutual friend X move for 9 total hours. Now, some of that was a nice dinner hot pot break, which was my first hot pot experience, which was nice. But it was cold. It's like in between 30 and 40 degrees the whole time. X he lived on the second floor at his previous place. He lives on the second floor at his current place. And his elevator was broken at his previous place. So a lot of stair movement. That was fun. Out in the cold. If the listener doesn't know, I have asthma, so cold weather and asthma is a tough mix. I described it because I was trying to think how I described the feeling. I described it to X as when you're really sick and you have like a cough drop, and it's like, oh, this is so like soothing and relieving. It's the exact opposite of what that would feel like. It's like, oh, this burning sensation going on in my lungs right now while it's cold outside is very strange. And then there was a lot of driving that occurred over the last couple of days, and I was attempting some songs that I don't know if I have the range for in my car. So all of that has led to me sounding like this. And now we're here. It's Sunday. It's February. Um, I was gonna say Happy Black History Month, but people that know me know that I'm not a huge fan of Black History Month, and now I have to explain that because that sounds insane. Um, I don't like that there's only a month and the other 11 months don't like forget it. That's basically the explanation of it, without taking up too much of our time here. And the Super Bowl is this Sunday, and I am an idiot that scheduled a surgery on Friday, and Jared will be taking care of me, and I'll probably be a zombie for the Super Bowl and whatever material we're supposed to record after. So that's everything about me, and that was a lot. So hopefully you can take that all in. I don't want to keep us here all day, so I think that hits the bullet points, the main things. How are you, Jared? Or do you have some follow up for me before?
So just to sum up for the listener, Damon hates Black History Month.
Sure.
No, I'm
I
doing well.
am
I gotta
black,
feel,
by the way. You can't tell visually when you look at me, but I'm of mixed race, so I'm not Hispanic or whatever. So
yeah, Damon said that with the authority to say it. If I made the same comment, even with the same logic, I think it would not really go over quite as well.
yeah, that's
Um,
why it's yeah, for sure.
but yeah, no, I mean I got up at like 10:30 and I was just kind of pretty much texted you around when I got up. But no, I'm doing okay. I think that there's some real comedy potential to have you knocked out for the Super Bowl and then try to ask you questions about the game without you having watched it or something, depending on where you are physically. I I'm familiar with the type of operation going down, and I think your recovery might be a little faster than it would seem, but I don't want to, speak too soon. All I'll say is I had a pretty solid week. Have to start getting up a little earlier for work on Saturdays, which I'm adjusting to. But I'm looking forward to talking football. I've been banging the drum for our big segment, the Paper Plate Awards for all 32 teams. And we're excited to get into that. But first, every team hired and fired 12 people. And we have to kind of get into some of that. So let's go straight into the news. And Damon, I'll let you take this first piece just because this is something that you added to the sheet and know more about.
Yes, we've talked about it before, but Broncos linebacker Alex Singleton earlier in the year was diagnosed with testicular cancer early enough that he could get a pretty quick procedure to kind of rid himself of it, which is good, obviously, great. I think he only missed 1 week and then he was playing the next week, so a pretty big turnaround for him. And they made like a very like mini documentary about it, and in the documentary he talks about his sister Ashley, who has Down syndrome, as kind of the reason he was so like positive about the whole thing and kind of bounced back. He said, compared to her, he doesn't think he'll ever go through anything remotely hard, which I thought was a very nice thing to say. And she is a Special Olympics athlete operating in the Southern California area. I didn't see what sort of athlete, like what exactly she does, but he basically looks at her as kind of his motivation and stuff. And I just thought that was really cool because, I mean, you know, I have zero experience with cancer, but I don't know if I'm turning around in a week to play this contact sport after the fact. So, um, shout out to him and Ashley.
Yeah. I'm certainly am glad that he's bringing kind of the Special Olympics and a lot of credit to his sister in the spotlight. I would want to go and kind of like observe this for myself before rendering a comment. I do sometimes wonder whether, and this is not at Alex, but like as a culture, we look at certain things as like I don't know. I'm not going to go any further because I would want to fully develop this thought, but I personally think a lot about this type of thing because of my own family, and I think there's a lot of conversation to be had, and I think it's great that he's willing to center the dialogue around his sister and celebrate what she's achieved, especially in the context of his own struggle. That's not an easy thing to do. Um, Actually, I'll go ahead and take this fourth item and staple it. Speaking of being cancer free, Patriots defensive coordinator Terrell Williams is cancer free and will travel with the team to the Super Bowl. He's apparently not traveled with the team all year. And so this is his first time traveling with them, and of course, the best time. Um, Linebackers coach Zach Core has been calling the defense week to week. And so the fact that the Patriots have made it all the way to the Super Bowl, spoiler, without the defensive coordinator that they necessarily hired going into the season being available to them is really incredible. And it's great to hear that he's cancer free. Um, and will be able to go to the, maybe one of the most meaningful games of his career. And that was just some nice positive news. I think that news came out yesterday. So, great to see. And obviously, I mean, I think he got his diagnosis right before the season started. So really difficult time to be going through all of that, but great that he was able to beat, beat it and enter remission. So
Absolutely. You'll never hear me complain about somebody beating cancer, but the joke I will make on this is if the Patriots win the Super Bowl, it's like the group project member that didn't do anything.
a a little bit. A group with a great excuse, but it's like,
You're right.
yeah. Um, yeah. Speaking of not getting credit for winning a Super Bowl, uh, Bill
And
Belichick
the and the Patriots.
and the Patriots. Speaking of something very specifically related to this, um, Bill Belichick was not voted into the first ballot as a first ballot Hall of Famer. He made it to that kind of last stage and did not receive the required number of votes to make the Hall of Fame. A couple people come out. They're talking on the call. One Hall of Fame voter just prefers to vote for the older players who may never have a chance of getting into the Hall, but he wants to kind of highlight their careers. And another one just said he wanted to give the credit to Robert Kraft, not Bill Belichick. But I'd say a pretty shocking snub. I think it's simply impossible to look at what Bill Belichick did as coach of that team and not view him as a first ballot Hall of Famer. I know there's some talk, maybe, oh, it's the Spygate stuff, putting some kind of asterisk on his career a little bit, but I don't know. I just think it's surprising to me to see someone who was so prolific in the history of pro football and such a gifted coach who guided those teams over so many years. I mean, he has the longevity, he has the sheer volume. It feels like a snub to me.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly feels like a snub. If you were to pull out the coaching record books and look at the wins and the Super Bowls and the stuff that I feel like people kind of point to, he's going to be up there for all of those. I think what didn't help him, Robert Kraft is a crazy name, by the way, to say. I was actually giving him credit. That's a crazy accreditation. Most people go the other way and go the Tom Brady route, right?
Yeah.
And then point at the fact that Tom Brady won a Super Bowl after leaving the Patriots. Belichick obviously kind of flamed out, but the Patriots were not a very good team. I don't really care. I like it's a snub, but I feel like the news was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We gotta fire all the people. We gotta redo this. We gotta blah blah blah." And it's like, he might get there next year, and sure he's not first ballot anymore. Okay. Is the controversies Spygate, Deflategate even to an extent. Does that mean that you're now docked a first ballot entry, but you're still in the Hall of Fame? Maybe. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Like to me at least, it's like, oh yeah, like there was some clear stuff that happened in your career. Um, Ultimately, I will say the thing and this doesn't apply to this at all. It's just a personal thing. It's a joke. The dating the 25-year-old, that'll get me. That'll
That is fair.
cloud my judgment. Obviously, it has nothing to do with the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but in terms of like, do I like a person or not? That one's weird.
Yeah, it's certainly been a weird couple of years for Bill. And I do think that it's really yeah, I think you make a lot of good points. And I think if anything else, someone goes to Canton in 30 years who was not around for the Belichick era and sees all his accomplishments and goes, why wasn't this guy first ballot? Maybe that's just their way of saying, hey, we want to kind of start that conversation with people because you get him in first ballot and it sort of closes the door for a lot of inquiry, I imagine, versus like, oh, here's this undisputed, like 8-time champion, like, superstar coach, but we didn't give him the first ballot. And then maybe it kind of is a way of keeping that dialogue alive through history as some of our specific attachment to Belichick sort of fades over the years for those next waves of fans. But uh, yeah, I guess, in the Kraft comment, they literally voted for Kraft because Kraft was also up for the Hall of Fame. But I certainly think Tom Brady is probably considered now the architect of those wins and is, barring the unforeseen, probably the most indisputable first ballot Hall of Famer that exists.
Yeah. Although I gotta say, in that case, Tom Brady, I'm not a fan of the Big Tom. Not a fan of the TP12 athlete brand. But again, that has nothing to do with the actual Hall of Fame itself.
Yeah, I will say I've liked Tom Brady a lot in the booth this year. I think he's done a nice job calling games, especially compared to some of the duds out there this year. No offense, but there's a few teams that I'm
No,
just shaking
call
my
him
head at.
out by name.
Tony Romo doesn't have it, I think, and I don't think Jonathan Vilma has it. But anyone who's listened to the podcast,
But he works with Jim Nance at least in Romo's case, so it's like, oh, okay.
well, if anything, that's a greater sin. If you're working with a brilliant play-by-play guy
That's fair.
and you're wasting that talent, it's tough to see. Um, Last thing here in the news, Giants co-owner Steve Tisch, our unethical baller of the week, to say it
Mm.
lightly, as he was named in a recently released wave of Epstein files.
Billions of
Um,
them, pages and
yeah,
pages.
pages and pages. I will acknowledge that Commanders owner Josh Harris, Patriots owner Robert Kraft, Panthers owner David Tepper, and I couldn't tell if there were any other owners or just other famous people who were named. Harris's connection looks, based on the ESPN article I read, they seem to go out of their way to say, hey, this was pretty innocuous. He didn't really contact him directly. Um, Kraft apparently retained Epstein's attorney when he had the whole massage parlor scandal, so that was something. But Tish definitely was being set up with women by, um, well, I won't say definitely, was allegedly being set up with women by Epstein.
Yeah.
And a lot of those messages have been released, and I don't like the way Steve Tish thinks about women. I don't care if they're children or adults. It was just really uncomfortable. So,
I think that's fair. I think if you asked me to, if you said, what is one name NFL related that would appear in Epstein files, Robert Kraft may have been the first one that I thought of. So I'm not surprised about that. And to the Hall of Fame point that we were just talking about, I could think of more moral human beings. Um, yeah, I wonder if the NFL will, like force a sell or something. I don't know.
yeah, I know that Tish is like a partial owner, so I wonder if they would just have him move his stake, depending on whether this leads to any sort of indictment. But they included in the Athletic and ESPN the like direct kind of transcript of their messages, and it's just like so just like crass and hollow and
It's locker room talk, they call it.
yeah, hopefully not the locker room of any team I root for, because man, it was miserable. And
Yep.
I am grateful that this wave of accountability through these files is coming in and helping to
Well,
initiate and maintain this dialogue.
we yes, but we got to see if anything actually happens.
Well,
That's the
sure.
second key part. Will they actually do anything about it? This is not an NFL conversation. This is a, by and large conversation.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Let's go ahead and move on to firings and hirings. We've got a lot to talk about.
We
Um,
coined that name ourselves. Good job. Good job. No
Firings
one,
and hirings. That's
yeah, no one else
well,
has ever used it.
yeah.
So,
Here you go. Terminations and germinations. All right, planting the seeds for
oh,
future seasons. There you go.
I miss the recaps coming up with the names every week. We gotta this helps for sure.
Yeah, this is a great window into that, and there's still two openings left at this point in the cycle: the
Hmm.
Raiders and the Cardinals. Somehow this late in the offseason, we're still getting people fired. Damon, what was the surprise news from this Friday, I believe?
I'm glad you gave me this because I wanted to take the run at this name as the blacker member of our podcast. I think it's probably less offensive. Um, so the Vikings have fired General Manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. Um, how'd
That's
I
how I
do?
would have said it. That's how I
Okay.
would have said it.
And I'm sure I could just also search it up, but it's why do that? They're gonna the first so the actual firing itself, apparently there was a lot of tension throughout the season, a lot of kind of behind the scenes discussions and stuff where I think management and ownership were just not seeing eye to eye, and has led to this fair, fine, whatever. He was extended last offseason, so it's a little strange the timing of this firing. And also, what's strange about the timing of this firing is they talked about that they're going to look for a new general manager after the NFL draft. That is the part that really does not make sense to me.
Yeah, it's something that I've seen teams do in the past, and I think the idea is that you really can't, in the peak of scouting season, come in, bring in an entirely new scout staff, completely overhaul that side of the organization and necessarily prepare for the draft. And again, maybe, if you're just now hiring a GM, like, okay, this is right when you have the time to do that. But the idea of, okay, we're going to fire and then we're going to take 2 to 3 weeks to search for a guy and then we're going to hire them. But by then it's almost March. Probably just a little unfeasible. I think the biggest thing for me about this is how long it took to come to this decision. I think
Hmm.
you need to be much quicker on the trigger for this this choice. It was one of those things where the timing was so off that I wondered if there was some sort of workplace scandal.
Right,
But it,
right.
it seems like their just decision-making team took a really long time to reach consensus on this. And I was reading about it on The Athletic this morning. I think it was probably pretty justified. I saw some interesting notes about how he took paternity leave in training camp maybe a couple seasons ago, which I don't think he should be fired for, but how it was so
That's
contrary to
why
the NFL's.
Jared thinks that he should have been fired. I understand.
Yeah, that's it. I think fathers don't have the right to spend time with their children.
Paternity
Um,
leave hater.
no, I it was just really interesting because it was so contrary to the culture of the NFL.
Hey,
And
so was kneeling during the national anthem, but you're not gonna find me saying that you can't do that.
no, nor am I saying you shouldn't take paternity leave. I think you absolutely should take paternity leave. I think it is healthy to spend time with your family.
Mm.
I was more commenting on how that fact was apparently received with such surprise around the league, right? Something that should hopefully feel relatively natural being received as really abnormal. And I
So
don't
far
think
in what you told me, I support Quessy.
No, I support Kwesi in that sense. In the team building sense, I think he had a lot of flaws. I think they made a few big swings that just have not panned out. The trade up for Dallas Turner um, doesn't really look like a strong investment. McCarthy obviously looks pretty suspect. The Athletic mentioned trading down with Detroit and taking Lewis Seen at safety, who played 10 games with the Vikings before getting cut. Um, just a lot of missed opportunity for a really well built team with, I would argue, one of the most talented coaching staffs in the league because of the presence of Brian Flores. So yeah, does it shock me he was fired? No. Does it shock me he was fired now? Yes.
Yeah, that's fair. Um, the timing is the worst part for sure. It's like, okay, well, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Um, yeah. All right. Let's move on to a lot of hirings, and we'll talk about a couple firings in the midst, but we got things that have happened keeping in the general manager news. The Falcons are hiring Bears assistant GM Ian Cunningham to become their new GM. So we had the weird thing where the one guy was promoted to like CEO, and then they hired Matt Ryan as president of football operations, and now they hired this guy as general manager. The weird connection I read here is that the general manager of the Bears was Matt Ryan's guard in college, and now Matt Ryan's hiring his assistant to be the general manager. So that's kind of funky. I don't know anything about Ian Cunningham because why would I know anything about an assistant general manager? I don't really have strong opinions on this, except the picture I saw of him when they announced the news was not a great picture. So unfortunate for him in that respect.
Now I have to go look this up. I will say, I think the Bears did a nice job building around the offensive line this offseason um, in a way that sort of allowed. Yeah, it's kind of a dorky picture. I don't know. But I think they did a nice job sort of giving Ben Johnson, obviously they restocked the offensive line and a lot of those guys have, played at a pretty high level. Um, some nice defensive additions too. So I definitely understand the logic. I think for the Bears' problems in the years preceding this one, I think Ryan Poles wasn't necessarily the sole reason that team was struggling. So um, I don't hate the hire for the Falcons. That said, I know nothing about Ian Cunningham. So,
Right.
um, speaking of Bears personnel being hired away, the Ravens have hired Bears offensive coordinator Declan Doyle to serve as their own offensive coordinator, which is interesting. Normally, you wouldn't necessarily allow, or teams can block rather, these types of interviews if you're interviewing for the same position with a different team. But Declan Doyle did not have play calling privileges. Ben Johnson calls the plays, whereas he will call plays with the Ravens. And so, by virtue of that promotion, he is sort of given permission to do that interview and now moves over to the Ravens. Damon, how old is Declan Doyle?
I know the answer to this. 29.
He is 29. Pretty young guy, and definitely a rapid ascent for someone who I don't think was on a ton of radars even going into his hire by Ben Johnson. So
I will
very
say
interesting.
Declan Doyle is the name of like that old white guy supervillain in the show like Arrow or even a show like Tulsa King. Declan
Um,
Doyle will make an appearance.
that sounds, yeah, with like the plaid suit kind of energy going on.
Sure.
Um, billionaire Declan Doyle has been sighted at the crash. Like, yeah, it just feels
Uh,
right. Um, that's a good pull. That is a good pull. In other kind of weird ways that a transaction works news, the Dolphins have promoted their passing game coordinator, Bobby Slowick, formerly OC with Houston, to their own offensive coordinator position. But does it really feel like a promotion when technically they hired a new coach and so they could have just broken his contract and so it's like a different guy giving someone who's already there a job? I don't know. It's just a little weird, but I don't know if Slowick showed enough in Houston to make me feel full confidence in him as an OC, but must be
he
something they
interviewed for
like in
the
him.
Eagles gig, but did not get it. So
Hmm. Yeah,
tough.
who did get that Eagles job, huh?
Yes, the Eagles job was given to Packers QB coach Sean Mannion as their new offensive coordinator. Also pretty young. Do you know how young he is?
Is he like 30?
He's like 32, 33.
Yeah.
Um, he was a backup QB like not that long ago.
No, I
I
remember him as a player for sure. I just
yeah,
I couldn't tell you. I figured he might be a little older, but um yeah, good in theory a pretty good landing spot. I would say in practice
it hasn't gone that way. Well,
yeah,
actually, that's not true. The Eagles offensive coordinators, it's like you become a head coach or you get fired. Those are the two options.
yeah, yeah.
I
It's kind of like a
can't
Bucks
see the head
situation.
coach path, but you know,
Yeah. Definitely definitely I said definitely as a filler word and then I realized I had to say something with definitude, which I don't have about
right?
this hire. I will say, obviously, the Packers have a nice track record of developing quarterbacks, and I think
For
we're
sure.
seeing a pipeline of a lot of former backups. Looking over at David Blau as the Commanders OC, now Sean Mannion. Kellen Moore was previously a backup quarterback for the
Mm.
Lions and Cowboys. So this feels like a pretty well-established pipeline nowadays of going from QB to OC. Obviously, Kevin O'Connell. So I think there's a nice track record of this type of hire, and Nick Sirianni never really being an OC, but having that sort of senior OC voice going on could be a good hire there.
Yeah, for sure. Not last. No, maybe last. OC hiring that we have here. The Titans hiring former Giants head coach Brian Dibble, who interviewed for a fair amount of head coaching gigs himself, as their new offensive coordinator. I do have takes about this one, but what do you think, Jared?
I was talking about this a little bit with my. I mean, I don't know. I think it's fine. I, on the one hand, wonder anytime an offensive coordinator leaves an elite quarterback and goes to another system, as Dayball with Josh Allen then leaves to go to the Giants, I do become somewhat skeptical of their ability to maximize talent on an underwhelming roster. But I will say that if they believe Cam Ward has elite potential, which I think he does, then pairing him with someone who's able to maximize elite potential might be a good fit for him. Dable might be a better maximizer than floor raiser, and if you believe that Cam Ward has a really high ceiling, then go get someone who's worked with a high ceiling quarterback in the past. I can see the logic.
Yeah, I think like your answer is logical and sound and makes sense. I just think of Robert Saleh and Brian Dable, and makes me kind of want to throw up in my mouth a little bit. Um,
Hmm.
but that's more of a me thing, I think.
Yeah, I get it. I certainly think there's reason to be suspicious of their tandem success, but I don't know. There's something kind of amusing about these two former New York head coaches joining forces in Nash Vegas. We'll see.
Yeah.
I think it's not the hire I feel the most icky about or iffy about
Uh-huh.
in this cycle. We'll get to a couple of those later, but um, the Jets have decided to mutually part ways with offensive coordinator Tanner Engstrand after um, Engstrand was going to be stripped of play calling duties. They've apparently been talking with Frank Reich about potentially joining on as an offensive coordinator. Engstrand just got
How do I
hired as
know
the
that name?
Frank Reich. He was the former coach of the Colts and the Jaguars
That's why I know that name. The
and the
Colts.
Eagles
Got it.
offensive coordinator during their Super Bowls, I believe. Um,
Uh,
or was he their head coach?
mm,
I think he was the coach before Sirianni, was he not?
don't ask silly old me. I don't know.
Um, I am gonna double check myself because I feel like I'm totally turned around now.
I ruined it. I distracted him.
Oh. Eagles OC, Colts head coach, not the Jaguars. He was the Panthers head coach. My bad.
Ah, yeah.
For
You said
1 year.
Jaguars, and I was like, I don't remember that. I remember the
Um,
Colts.
yeah, Colts, and then he was sort of the like terrible Panthers year that led to the Dave Canales experience.
hmm
And yeah, Engstrand is now landed as the passing game coordinator with the Falcons, former Lions assistant. Um, I won't say I thought this hire was surprising. Nothing about the Jets would be surprising after the year they had, but I certainly think he is better than just being cutting room floor material for a bad team. So
Yeah, for sure. It's hard. It's hard to look at a season like the one that the Jets just had and want to keep anybody. So I understand kind of clearing house, but you do have to you do have to kind of get continuity at some point. So hopefully they can start that this upcoming year. So they are still, if I'm not mistaken, they're still looking for an OC, right?
yes. Frank Reich
Yeah.
is currently kind of considered the clubhouse leader, but
hmm
they have not landed on a new OC yet.
Yeah. Oh, what about their defense, Mister? You wanted to make sure the snow was in here is so important. So.
Oh, I mean, it matters a lot to me. Former Dolphins defensive passing game coordinator Brian Duker has been hired as the new Jets defensive coordinator. He was an assistant in Detroit for a few years. End of statement.
Under Aaron Glenn.
I believe so. Yeah, I'll
Okay.
do my Brian Duker research, but I'm pretty sure.
Ryan Duker is a weird name. I don't, something about it. I don't know.
He was with the Lions, yes, 2021 through 23, so that would definitely have overlapped with him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, it's good to get some guys you know in the door. Probably I've never been an NFL head coach, believe it or not, but I imagine that it could be a little difficult to go from defensive coordinator to head coach of a new organization and have nobody you know, and you're trying to get kind of repertoire established with every single person and also run a football team. Doesn't exactly
Well,
sound easy.
he knew Tanner Engstrand, um,
Yeah,
but
maybe he knew
oh
him
well.
too well.
He'd seen the darker side of Tanner Engstrand. Um, whose name I love because it sounds like some sort of physics particle, like an angstrand, like an angstrom or
Yeah,
something.
that's a very
Um,
strange name.
yeah. Let's flip over. Tell us about some other DC hires here.
Some other DC hires we have. We'll start with the Commanders hiring Vikings passing game coordinator Durante Jones as their new defensive coordinator. There's a little bit of buzz about him in other places. I believe he's from Maryland, so that's cool homecoming kind of story for him. And I think the Vikings have had a very good defense under Brian Flores as their DC. So, um, I think that assuming he takes lessons in well and all that, um, a good hire. You want, I think, when you get a new DC to get somebody, if you're not getting somebody who's already been a coordinator, getting somebody that's coming from a team where you can kind of look at and say, oh yeah, they're doing good things over there.
Yeah, no, I certainly think hiring from the Vikings tree is the right way to go about it, just in terms of evaluating what the defensive coordinator they've worked under has done. I think that Brian Flores, to me, I was actually just talking about this with someone the other day, I think is indisputably the best defensive coordinator, if not the best coordinator in the league right now. Just, if I had to pick one coordinator, one game, I would probably ask Brian Flores to scheme that defense for me. So
Hmm.
I certainly think it makes a lot of sense to pull from that tree there, and I think it's a nice get for the Commanders. I think quietly they've got a really nice pair of commanders and David or pair of commanders, pair of coordinators in David Blau and Durante Jones. Maybe they should call them commanders instead of coaches in Washington. That'd be kind of fun.
That would be cool.
Head commander,
It'd get a little confusing, but it would.
commander in chief Dan Quinn with offensive
Although,
commander and defensive commander.
substituting coach or coordinator for commander, as long as you're putting that other word in front of it, I guess it's like you already say a word a lot of the times,
Yeah,
like
I
coach or
guess
coordinator or whatever. So,
it would feel a little tough to put on the resume like, oh, outside linebackers commander. I don't quality
mm,
control commander. It just doesn't quite have as much
that
ring if it's not at the top, but
you just put the acronym on it, you just I was the OLC or whatever,
yeah. Oh, you were the outside linebackers coach. In so many words, yes, yeah.
Yes, yes.
Uh, um, they call the reference and Dan Quinn picks up and he's like, I am required by the team to say that they were the commander, not the coordinator.
Hmm.
Uh, anyway, that brilliant sketch. Please transition us out of it by telling us about the Chargers hire.
Yeah, the Chargers hired Western Michigan, um, their defensive coordinator Chris O'Leary, as their new DC. He used to be with the Chargers as the safeties coach under former defensive coordinator Jesse Minter. So he left back in 2024 for that Western Michigan job, and now he's back. So somebody that is familiar with the system. Um, I don't know how a year or two of being a college coordinator changes, but I don't mind this because I think that the Chargers defense has been another defense that has, I think, performed well in recent years. So getting a guy that was there for some amount of time makes sense to me, especially because this was a little later in the cycle with Jesse Minter getting hired as a head coach. So it was not like they were going into the offseason kind of planning a new coordinator move and didn't have time to kind of research beforehand. So for like, oh, our DC is gone, we got to hire somebody. This feels fair to me.
Yeah. Jesse Minter, if I'm not mistaken, having come over with Harbaugh from Michigan. So not afraid to pull from the college ranks, Jim Harbaugh. So, uh,
Well,
yeah,
it's not Jim Harbaugh anymore. Oh wait, I was
with the
thinking of the
Chargers.
Ravens. I was thinking
Yeah,
of the
yeah, sorry.
Ravens.
Yeah, no. Uh, two J Harbaugh names
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
definitely confusing, but yeah,
They also
speaking
look
of,
so similar that it kind of look.
I swear they could be brothers. Uh, the Packers, in an obvious chess move to try to counter the Lions hiring former Cardinals offensive coordinator Drew Petzing, have hired former Cardinals head coach Jonathan Gannon as their defensive coordinator. That was a joke, though it is an interesting coincidence, and it's going to be interesting to see Gannon returning to the defensive coordinator ranks. He was the Eagles DC before getting the head coaching job, and honestly, I don't know if I could really evaluate his defensive coordination. But this is another case where the Eagles have such a loaded defense that I wonder how much the talent does the talking. And granted, he's inheriting a pretty talented defense, so I suppose we'll see. I thought he ended up not being a very good head coach, but he seemed to have. He didn't seem like a bad dude. Just sort of a. I guess there was that one time that he like hit a guy or was yelling at a guy on the sidelines. That wasn't very good, but we'll see what he can do here. Maybe this is a chance for him to revive his stock and eventually wind up with another team.
um, fair, very fair. Yeah, I don't have any like super strong takes myself. I like his name. His name is cool. I think when I hear Jonathan Gannon, I'm like, I like that guy, but I don't. I think it's just because his name.
You seem to really care about the names of people being hired as an indication of their quality. But
Yeah, is that a good practice? Do you think they practice that one in the NFL or no?
I mean, how many head coaches can you think of who have a really strange name?
That's a good question. I guess it depends on, your definition of strange. Um, yeah, because like, there's a lot of strange NFL player names, right? But I that doesn't translate often into the coaching market, I guess. Like, it's not like here's our new defensive coordinator, Kool-Aid McKinstry. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going around the horn and I'm like, man, who is like, I mean, Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell share a division. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
really just not a lot of, we'll talk about some other hirings, but Mike McDaniel, not that weird. LaFleur's kind of funny sounding, maybe. Obviously this is
Sirianni.
not Sirianni's like,
It's
I
like,
mean,
oh,
I don't
that's
want this
so
to turn into
European. It's crazy.
yeah. I don't want this to turn into a conversation about like, oh, the exoticism or whatever. Although I do think
Sure.
it's a fair indication that like, huh, there's a lot of
A
white
lot,
head
a
coaches, so
lot of
there's a
white
lot of
guys.
white guy names,
Yeah.
It's kind of a correlation there. But even, I just feel like there's sort of it's typically like that strong kind of 2 to 3 syllable situation where you're
Hmm.
just like Mike Vrabel, boom, boom. It's
A lot of mics. A lot of mics.
yeah. I mean, like Jesse Minter might be the most interesting head coaching name that I can think of right now, and it's pretty standard name. So,
Yeah, for
um,
sure.
I don't know. That's. I'll be thinking about that, and I'll try to think of the weirdest one that I can, or most unusual one I can think of. Uh, Later.
You're
Who did the
welcome for
Bills
putting that on
hire?
your brain. Uh, the Bills hired Broncos passing game coordinator Jim Leonard as their new defensive coordinator. I guess I should mention we went over this last pod because we just said passing game coordinator like 4 times. This is the guy that is responsible for defending the pass on the defense because the name may suggest to you that it's the guy that coordinates the passing offense. It's the exact opposite. It's the defense against that. Um, so Jim Leonard, Leonhard is how it's spelled, which is strange, but I assume it's Leonard. Broncos have a great defense. Um, Now a lot of that is great talent, and some of that is in the secondary, led of course by Pat Surtain. But they also have good safeties. They have very good corners. They have a lot of good guys. Uh, Similarly to how I felt about the Vikings passing game coordinator getting hired. I mean, yeah, this is an elite defense, and this is part of that elite defense. So it makes sense to me that they would hire this person.
Um, yeah, he seemed very coveted. I was looking at a list of head coaches to see if anyone had a
Hmm.
name that truly caught the eye. Um, of course, the ones that stood out were from you know, uh, the Latinx head coach and the D'Amico Ryans, right? I think
Hmm.
Kellen Moore, to me, takes the clubhouse lead with Kellen as the first name as the most.
The often thought of as a women first name. Yes.
Yeah. I, yeah. Anyway, I don't know. Just it's something that caught my eye that there's really no eye-popping names there. And Joe Brady, no exception, hired as the head coach of the Bills. Uh, and of course, bringing in Jim Leonard as sort of his defensive lieutenant, and I imagine someone who will have a lot of the reins over that defense. I don't know why you fire Sean McDermott because you want to change at the coaching position and you want to bring in a fresh identity, and then you promote his offensive coordinator. Just kind of
My
feels
exact criticism of this hire.
just like so bizarre. I guess I don't know. Is Joe radically different from Sean? Uh, I don't know. He wants to keep Keon Coleman around as a Bill, which seems different from the rest of the organization's thinking. So maybe that's the breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Is they just asked every candidate, "What do you think of Keon Coleman?" And Joe Brady was the only one who said, "Yeah, I like Keon Coleman." And they're like, "Look at this guy. He's a thinker," and then gave him the job. So I'm sure he might end up being a fine head coach. I just think the optics of replacing someone who was a really well-regarded head coach with an unproven lieutenant of his really, really strange.
Especially when the whole like press conference after was like, oh yeah, we've hit a wall. Like we're just not getting where we need to go. We need to change it up. And it's like, well, this isn't really changing it up that much. So they need a new OC too now, right?
They will. Yeah.
Uh,
Lot of it's interesting. There's been a lot of movement at the coordinator position, obviously with these new hires, and then
It's
A
like
couple
more
cases
than
of
half the league. It's crazy.
it's pretty wild. Yeah, there's just a lot of transition here, and I actually don't know if we mentioned it in reference to the Broncos. They moved on from their offensive coordinator as well.
Mm,
So a lot of playoff worthy teams making moves. They let go of Joe Lombardi. I think they're expected to promote QB coach Davis Webb, who
hmm
has gotten a or
He's been getting the buzz in the cycling hiring process.
no, I think this is a great way to kind of hold on to him for another year. I expect we'll be talking about head coach Davis Webb in the next 3 years, just based on the current trajectory.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, just so much movement, so much shaking around. But a few new commanders in chief of their respective teams. Tell me about the two most buttered wheat toast hirings of the cycle, then.
Oh, okay. I gotta get some elaboration on that. But the Browns are hiring former Ravens offensive coordinator Todd Monken as their new head coach, coming over the division rivalry. And I believe he took somebody on his staff over there too, or like somebody formerly from his staff over there. Oh no, this is what happened. Harbaugh got hired and went over to and Monken went over to the Giants, and then he got hired as a head coach. He said, "Never mind, I'm not going over to the Giants. I'm going
Yeah.
back to the AFC North to the Browns."
Yes, and Monken's hire agitated Jim Schwartz, who had a chance to be head coach there. Now will likely be looking for another team, despite the Browns' desperation to keep him around.
Hmm.
I think that this just is kind of boring to me. And I don't want to be ageist, right? But they went with a much older head coach here, who doesn't have a lot of a proven reputation necessarily as like, oh yeah, Todd Monken, who that guy who's like a total leader, right? Not
Hmm.
necessarily how he's profiled in the past. Um, I personally think they should have just held on to Jim Schwartz if they liked him so much. He has head coach experience, and again, I was talking with my boss the other day. He's a huge football guy, and he was saying, is this hire a stopgap, hold down the fort until they're adequate, and then bring in a real coach? And honestly, I would rather do that with a former head coach in Jim Schwartz, who at the very least has held that seat before and has the potential to maybe, to me, maybe has a higher ceiling than Todd Monken does. I just, this didn't really get me excited away the way that some of the younger names they had been talking to got me excited, but so be it.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this choice, especially when you've fired Kevin Stefanski, who I think is at this point probably a better head coach than Todd Monken. Maybe that will be disproven next year, but I understand a lot of coaching hirings are like, man, we just need a fresh look, fresh pair of eyes, or what have you. But um, this was a weird route for them to go for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I liked the other names they were talking to more. And then continuing the wheat toast conversation, the Steelers have hired former Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy as their new head coach. I guess you can't say he isn't competent, but I would not call this the most exciting choice they could have made. Granted, McCarthy's a Pittsburgh native, and I guess that matters to the Steelers. We've seen that with Kenny Pickett in the past. Um,
That worked out, so.
yeah, it worked out super well. I mean, this just to me feels a little like, I'll give him credit. He was pretty solid in Dallas. Obviously, in Green Bay got a ring. I just think that it's hard for me to look at this hire and go, man, the Steelers are really pushing themselves to reinvent the way they play football and challenge for a championship.
Yeah, it's definitely an eye roll higher for me. I'm like, okay. One thing I will say, is from my understanding, they didn't fire Mike Tomlin. He was just like, I'm good. If they would have fired Mike Tomlin to hire Mike McCarthy, I think it's a lot worse.
That is
Um,
a great point. That is a great point.
but it's still pretty blah. By the way, Steelers um, third coach, my third Mike in a row, I believe.
Who was before?
Couldn't tell you. I read it a long time ago. Steelers head coach history.
I thought it was like Bill Cowher.
You're right. It was Bill Cowher.
Oh, Bill
I don't know
Cowher,
where I got
Paul.
that information from. Back to back Mike stuff. I must be thinking of somebody else or something else. Um, wow, this is only the fourth head coach in their history. That's crazy.
Well, yeah, since like Super Bowl era, yeah, they like don't hire coaches, they just hold on to them for all time, which is impressive for the Steelers. So whatever they
It's admirable. Yeah.
however they scout head coaches, maybe I should just shut up and let them cook.
Do you think Mike McCarthy will continue the trend? He'll be there for like 20 years.
I mean, he's a little older than a lot of those guys. I think Mike McCarthy's in his late 50s, early 60s.
He looks
Yeah, he's
old for sure.
62. I mean, if he's around for
Oof.
20, he'd be 82. So,
He'll be Pete Carroll out there. That'll be awesome.
jeez. I could see him going for a decade, and then maybe they have to reevaluate based on how he's doing in terms of, oh, how long could he feasibly last? Like, I guess he could go 20 years, but you know, I don't know how much you're getting out of him past that point, and he would be pretty old. Uh, so maybe this is a hire of, hey, we're just going to hire the guy that we think will give us the best coaching performance over the next 5 years, based on who's left, and then we're going to make a decision when the time comes if it seems like we need to move on for him or if he starts to decline. But you never know. Maybe he'll just kind of hang
In
around
his
and
in his physical health, the stretch
I don't know.
decline.
I mean, I just I assume the mental acuity somewhat
Mm.
starts to and especially with the life of an NFL head coach, it's not like it's easy street. You're kind of constantly on the grind. So,
Yep.
we'll see. Just as we'll see whether the Raiders end up hiring Seattle Seahawks offensive coordinator Klint Kubiak, or whether he lands with the Cardinals, who he intends to visit after having interviewed with the Raiders.
Yeah, and the report I saw is that they were gonna announce their head coach before weekend's end, but here we are on Sunday, and Klint Kubiak is working on a deal to become the head coach of the Raiders. I just looked it up. So,
Also, by the way, I do have to say, you said he's their fourth head coach ever. Wow. And the Steelers released an article saying McCarthy named 17th head coach in Steelers history.
maybe the
So,
fourth in like since
might,
68 or something like
yeah,
that.
it might be fourth in the Super Bowl era or something
Yeah.
like that. Um, so I just thought the contrast was funny. Like, I don't really think pre-Super Bowl, besides the Lions championships, we keep track of much, but I held on to that flag.
Yeah, I should have researched more beforehand, but I did the critical mistake of looking at Google AI overview for 3 seconds and was like, yes, this is the truth.
Um, All's fair. Interesting to see now that it looks like Clint is going to be locked in for the Raiders. Which is interesting just because I feel like there was a period where he was kind of like bouncing around a little bit. Like he's had a great year. Um, I don't know. I wonder if maybe this is a bit early. He had a year as the Saints OC last year and wasn't necessarily like, king of the world or anything, but we'll
Yeah.
we'll see whether this one works out. And it puts the spotlight on the Cardinals, who have interviewed a lot of names and now are sort of left to pick a coach from the field. I know they've interviewed Raheem Morris, and I am honestly kind of rooting for that at this point.
Absolutely. Would love to see Raheem Morris get hired. The other news item that we will see here, or that's a name we've mentioned, Tanner Engstrand, has been hired as the Falcons passing game coordinator.
I did mention that when we talked about him being fired from the Jets, but I appreciate you
I just saw
recalling.
it. I just looked at it. I hadn't looked at my news all day. I forgot. So
No, all good. I threw it in the rundown there just because
we,
under him
oh,
being
I
fired.
see.
But
I do see. We've talked about 1,000 people. That's on me. I don't listen to my co-host when he talks. Usually, I just kind of sit here. So,
I try not to listen to myself either.
oh,
I'd seen some rumors that Rams OC Mike LaFleur might have a path towards the Commanders head coaching gig, or Commanders, well, Cardinals head
Anders,
coaching gig.
gotcha.
Yeah, Dan Quinn traded to the Cardinal. No, so maybe the Rams
Oh,
OC goes there, but I don't know. I'm rooting for Raheem, man. If Raheem interviewed, and I feel like reading he did. I feel like I remember reading that he did. That'd be great.
he interviewed for the Raiders job as well.
Um, let's talk about the game that this podcast is about. Let's talk about football.
Now that we're 54 minutes in, let's get into into the previous weekend of conference championship games, starting with this absolute heater: Patriots 10, Broncos 7. Oh, brother. What do you got for me, Jared?
Well, I'd say heater doesn't describe the weather.
Well, heater doesn't describe the game either. That's what we call sarcasm in the business.
Oh, for sure. I think this game was ultimately decided by heavy snow and wind uh, clamping down on the teams in the second half. There was some controversy in the first half, Sean Payton going for it instead of kicking a field goal. But I don't think we could have necessarily anticipated how bad that cold snap was going to get, and it essentially froze the score in place. So the Patriots, just by virtue of having a 3-point lead when it started to snow, field goals became incredibly difficult to attempt, despite some efforts on both sides. Really difficult to move the ball down the field. Um, I don't know if Jared Stidham was playing great, but I think putting him in the worst snow game you've ever seen, or one of the worst snow games in the modern era, I can't really blame him for what happened. I just think the Patriots.
I can.
You think Jared Stidham's the man to blame?
Yeah, I mean, the Patriots' one touchdown comes from him scrambling outside the pocket, pump faking a pass, and then legitimately two-hand shoving the ball out of his hands as he's about to get snacked or sacked. Snacked is crazy. He's about to get sacked. And he has the ball and he goes, ugh, and just throws it to the sideline. And Patriots defender falls on it, and they have the ball on like the 6 yard line, and they scored the only touchdown of the game.
Oh, this was the backwards pass, correct?
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
just
that's right.
a fucking nightmarish play. I was like, okay, oh,
That's
there it
true.
is.
Okay, we can somewhat put that at his feet. Although to be fair, I think on offense he wasn't playing poorly enough that if it hadn't snowed, the idea of them putting up enough points to get back into it would not have been surprising. Just with the snow, um, it became just nigh on impossible. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean he threw a pick their last drive. The Sean Payton going for it was tough because they would have been up 10-0 at that point. So a couple of key decisions. The Patriots, you know, I think up until this point have had a very easy schedule. Chargers, Texans, and now the Broncos with their backup QB. Lots of good defenses with subpar offensive performances, it seems. And they have just been able to not lose, basically. They haven't made the crucial, I mentioned the Jared Stidham play. They've been able to avoid the play or plays that will just lose them the game. And now they're here in the Super Bowl.
yeah, I I'll bring this up with my paper plate award, but I have a lot of feelings about how the Patriots made it this far.
Yeah.
Um, on the other side, a little more exciting game as games go. Rams 27 at Seahawks 31, and definitely a battle in this contest. I still think the Seahawks were playing the kind of football that made you believe they were going to be the Super Bowl team, but the Rams put up quite a fight.
Yeah, I think, this game I mentioned when we were previewing it, I picked the Seahawks because I didn't think they would blow the game as the Panthers and who else did they play at the Bears? Did in weeks past. I was like, the Seahawks are going to execute and they're going to come out on top here because they don't make the mistakes like the other teams. But they did make some mistakes in this game. They didn't look nearly as foolproof as they had in weeks past. Granted, it was the one match against the 49ers in which they absolutely destroyed them. Um, the big play that I'm going to remember from this game when I look back at it is the muffed punt return.
Oh yeah.
Um, Calls
Yep.
a fair catch, ball hits him, drops out. Seahawks get it again right there, and within the 10 yard line. Plays like that will determine a game that is ultimately close through and through. But the Seahawks were able to make enough plays to kind of stave off the Rams' attempt here. And now we have the Malcolm Butler Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'm trying to get myself a little refreshed on this game just because
I know it's been all week. Hmm.
been all week. How many points were scored in the fourth quarter of this game?
Oh, geez. Um, I feel like it's either really low or really high. And for some reason, I cannot remember how this game went. I'm gonna go with 7 because I feel like it was a pretty high scoring game in the first half.
It was 0, which is
Oh,
kind of crazy to think about. Which, granted,
yeah,
same for the other championship game, but yeah, apparently in the first half, Seattle had their 4 point lead, and then in the third quarter they both put up 14 points, and then the fourth, no points. So
yeah.
just kind of interesting. Yeah, I don't know why this game is kind of memory hold for me. I feel like the weather made Broncos Patriots feel memorable, and the fact that I was honestly rooting so hard for the Broncos.
Yep.
Um, but either way, I think the Seahawks put on enough of a show that they have me feeling good heading into Super Bowl 60, featuring our favorite content creator in the world, the one who always inspires us to be better. That's right, Damon. Who is it?
I really didn't like that you prefaced it that way and then made me say it, but Darman, YouTuber, Darman has been announced as the first ever Chief Kindness Officer and Creator of the Week for Super Bowl 60. Um, Jared's intro may have deceived you. Darman is one corny. The videos are corny. The setup is corny. I get the life lesson idea behind it, but the skits themselves are not very good. And also, there's been several controversies revolving around Darman, treatment of his employees, et cetera, et cetera. So basically, he is not your saint that you may want to give this kind of role to Chief Kindness Officer. I don't think Darman really fits the bill there.
Well, if they wanted a saint, couldn't they have just gotten Cam Jordan?
I would like that. I like Cam Jordan, I think. I know. As far
Um,
as I know, there's no Darman level controversy.
yeah, we had talked about this. I think they should have gotten one or multiple of the Walter Payton Man of the Year nominees from teams to have just had this kind of role.
Hmm.
Um, I guess they want to do a Creator of the Week thing. I know they've been trying more and more to integrate YouTubers into their broadcasts, and Darman has a big YouTube footprint. I never liked his vibe. I always kind
No.
of got the feeling that he was solely using the platform for cash, but
Yeah,
well,
that's pretty much what it is. Yeah.
yeah, now he's bringing kindness instead. There's been a
Yeah.
disputed report, speaking of money, which is always on the line here. The Seahawks apparently will go up for sale after Super Bowl 60 with a net valuation of expected to be $7 to $8 billion, which I thought I saw the owner then came out and like contradicted this report, but I couldn't tell you for sure.
I mean,
Um,
you may be right. I just saw the report and said, okay, I'll put that on there. I mean, if there's time to sell high after
yeah,
your
I
team
mean
is in
this
the
is this
Super
is the
Bowl,
moment.
this
As
is.
it, this kind of reminds me of the Celtics a few years ago, right?
Yes, the
Um,
Celtics did do this a few years ago, after winning their 18th championship, I think. From the company that bought them was called the 18th Banner or something. So once they achieved their goal, I guess they were out of there.
yeah, apparently the Paul Allen estate refuted the claims, but
Oh, the whole
interesting thing to
estate.
put out there.
Big news, big news.
Yeah, the house opened its maw, the manor, which represents their wealth and
Mm,
wisdom.
I
What are your
understand it
thoughts
now.
on this game itself, Damon? Who do you think's got a chance here?
Well, I'm sure you will allude to this when the Paper Plate Awards. I've kind of already mentioned it. The Patriots' path feels pretty chalky. It feels like in all three of their games up in the playoffs, the other team lost. They didn't win, you know.
Yeah,
Um, they put up what, 16 against the Chargers, 10 against the Broncos, and then I think it was more against the Texans, but I think it was because their defense had like defensive touchdowns in that game.
yeah.
Um,
CJ Stroud, CJ Strouded. So
right. So none of these games have felt like, oh, the Patriots came out and executed and had a game plan and they were unstoppable. Like I haven't felt that way about this team. But I have felt it at times more recently for the Seattle Seahawks. I know people will be like, "Oh my God, Sam Darnold!" Blah blah blah. First quarterback in the Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield draft to reach the Super Bowl, which is funny. But yeah, I like I think that they can execute. I think their defense is really good, which doesn't hasn't mattered so far. The Patriots played the Chargers, Texans, and Broncos. That's three really good defenses. Here's a fourth, I believe, in terms of statistics. See, the Seahawks the number one defense. Now they don't feel that way when you watch them compared to some of the other units I just mentioned, but um, like I said, they execute. They execute heavily on both sides of the ball. I did want to mention, kind of going back to the Rams Seahawks, something that almost was disastrous for the Seahawks was Reek Woolen having a what was it,
Yeah.
unsportsmanlike taunting thing after defending a pass successfully, going to the sideline and really talking his smack. It was kind of late in the game in a close scenario, so it was almost a disaster because it was on like third down. It would have been fourth down. It was
No, it was
like okay.
fourth and 12, if
Oh,
I'm not
it was
mistaken.
worse. Yes, you're correct. It was a fourth down. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. And then the Rams had a first down and with the ball in their hands. So almost a disaster. Hopefully, he can have a cooler head for this matchup. But yeah, I think that the coaching is there, the um, play calling is there. I think as long as I think they can out Patriot the Patriots. Like if I feel like the Patriots have gotten to this point just because they play well enough to not lose, I think the Seahawks are better at that than them. So
Yeah, I think all signs point to the Seahawks being the more complete team, just based on their path here, based on their dominant performances in the regular season. Um, and that's why the Patriots will win by 4, and I will begin to hate them again because it
immediately,
just
it's already there,
it.
really.
I mean, I'm like primed and ready. I guess
Yeah.
like I can accept that this is a completely different club, whatever. But if they I feel like it's all fun and games. This is going to be a really, really weird analogy, and I understand that what I'm comparing this to is not nearly as important. What I'm comparing this to is much more important. But like, there's that feeling during like the 2015-16 presidential cycle where you have this like bizarre sideshow that never really has a chance, and then the sideshow wins, and then suddenly everyone has to like own up and take it seriously, right? Um,
Yeah.
I think we're letting ourselves go, oh man, Drake May, young guy, charming. Oh, Mike Vrabel, first year's head coach. What a story. But then if they win, this like happy-go-lucky bumbling club who has gotten
Hmm.
past teams in their worst possible conditions
Hmm.
will suddenly be hoisting the trophy that 31 other teams were working for. And then you have to go, wait a minute, this isn't like fun anymore. You guys were meant to be a nice distraction that eventually was punished for not playing like the best team in the league really at any point this season. I just don't think there were many moments where people looked around and said, yeah, the Patriots are dominant. They were winning, they weren't dominant. Um, and I think the Seahawks have had those moments. So
Yeah.
I am hoping that the Seahawks win. It feels like a very deserved Super Bowl for the Seahawks. And if the Patriots win, I think it'll just feel a little it'll feel a little hollow, feel a little limp.
Yeah, I agree. I would be sad if the Patriots won. And then I have to read about Drake May all the time. Um, but he's not really the problem. There's some other issues I have with some characters on that team.
Yeah,
Um,
let's not give Stefon Diggs a ring. I'm okay if
right,
that doesn't happen.
right. Jared, this will be the third Super Bowl in which both head coaches share the same first name. Of course, Mike McDonald and Mike Vrabel. Can you guess the first name for the other two times that this occurred?
I've been thinking about this for the last hour,
Hmm.
and I'm trying to think like, okay, who are coaches that have made it all the way? And I'm just like, if I'm using my law of averages, I feel like John would be one of them.
No John. No John appearance. It's a fair guess though.
Because like my brain goes, oh well, Vince Lombardi went to multiple, but I feel like the odds of two Vinces is so low. I'll
Hmm.
say were there two Dans?
No, no Dan's, no Dan's.
Bill?
No, no Bill. Bill's a great guess. No Bill.
You'd think with so many Belichick
Huh.
appearances, you'd get one
Yeah,
Bill.
yeah, for sure.
Um, Apparently the Patriots and Panthers played a Super Bowl, and I couldn't tell you who that coach was, so I figured maybe there's a chance there. Jim or Jimmy?
No, no Jim, no Jim, no Jim, no Jim.
Really? Okay. Because
Uh, I'll give you a hint. You don't have to think that hard.
has it been Mike every time?
It's been Mike every time. It's been Mike
Wow.
every time.
Oh,
Yeah.
because wait, Mike McCarthy and Mike Tomlin.
There you go. Super Bowl 45. Yeah.
And was it Mike McCarthy? Well, no, Mike Holmgren was no, it's not that.
Mike Holmgren is one of them. He's one of them.
And then the other one would be in the AFC, right?
That would be like the hardest name on the list, I think. Mike Holmgren. This is Super Bowl 32, by the way.
32, Mike Holmgren and Mike.
Do, do, do.
Like, am I
Okay.
dumb for not knowing this? Like, is this sad that
No,
I
I
don't
don't
know?
think you're dumb. I would say he has a son who has a pretty well-renowned football mind as well.
Mike Shanahan?
Yes, yes,
Oh,
yes.
nice. Okay. Um, well, I was thinking Mike Holmgren because I was like, oh, Packers Seahawks. And I was like, wait, that's NFC Championship. But then you said it was right. So I was like, all right, I'll just stick with it. No, that's so funny. It's so funny that Mikes are the I guess it makes
But
sense, another very common name, but
I even said a hint earlier when I brought up I was like, oh, a lot of mics, huh? A lot of mics. Oh, wow. I don't
oh,
know what we
I
were
guess
talking about.
I'm a fool. I can't wait for the Kellen on Kellen matchup we're gonna get eventually.
Oh, that'll be huge.
I'm gonna where's some wood I can knock
It'll
on.
be Saints versus Browns when they hire former tight end Kellen Winslow as their head coach 10 years from now.
Honestly, I'm shocked you pulled another Kellen. I'm gonna knock on. I know
Just
there's
at
wood
a
in this room. Anyway, knock on cardboard for now.
um
Really? There's no wood. I need to keep a wooden. Oh, perfect. Okay. Anyway, um, yeah, I'm
well,
excited to watch Super Bowl. Going to be hosting a little party. You're invited. But obviously you're going to be.
I may be comatose on your couch during the Super Bowl or something like that. That'll be awesome.
Yeah. We'll see where you're at. Real quick, Pro Bowl came out. Any names you want to name? Actually, before you say anything, can
Okay.
you name the AFC free safety Pro Bowl initial pick? He has since been replaced by an alternate because he did not want to play. But the initial pick, free safety,
Yeah.
AFC.
I'm not looking. I'm not looking at the list. I have the list pulled up, but I'm not looking. AFC free safety who didn't want to play. Uh, Kyle Hamilton's a strong safety, huh? Because that would have been
Yeah,
my go-to.
I'll tell you the strong safeties are Kyle Hamilton and Derwin James. So it's
Oh,
not one of those two.
yeah, yeah. Those are good names. Free safety is such an interesting position. Um, would it, it would be hilarious if it was like CJ Gardner-Johnson.
It would
But
be. I will say it'd be funny for another reason. It's funny for another reason.
okay. Oh, you know what? I know who it is because I remember now. I remember the list. Wasn't it oh wait. What team does that guy play for now? Wasn't Jalen Ramsey announced as a safety?
Yes, the one who
Yeah.
you commended the trade to the Steelers
Yeah.
for, and then you don't even remember what
Hmm.
team he's on. Come on,
Yeah.
man.
He's also not a safety. So
Well, I think they played him at safety this year. I'm pretty sure is how they kind of ended up using him.
Mm.
But um,
That's a crazy pick, by the way, because he got absolutely destroyed this year, I think, for the most
he had a
part.
couple, I think, clutch plays, and I wonder if just the name recognition.
I
Um,
Here's what I'll say about the Pro Bowl. It's names more than anything. It's like there are some guys that were voted to, because they do get voted to the Pro Bowl that I was like, this guy was not that good this year, actually. I'm not so sure about that. Here's what I'll say as well. I'll give it a quick once over. I will shout out because if you really want to know the Pro Bowl names, you can look it up. And a lot of people were replaced because they were quote unquote injured, or they were actually injured, or they're playing in the Super Bowl. So you get more names looked at. But I think names that are kind of worth mentioning. I wanted to shout out DeMarcus Lawrence, who is not going to play because he is on the Super Bowl Seahawks roster. But I remember him being a very good defensive lineman for the Cowboys a long time ago that was never super credited. And he is much, much older now, probably pretty close to retirement. So I'm happy that he got some love for this one.
Who did
Uh,
you just call out? I'm sorry, I had to check something.
DeMarcus Lawrence.
Oh, DeMarcus Lawrence. Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Um, oh, Kevin Byard. Awesome. So awesome for the Bears. I've always liked Kevin Byard. When he was with the Titans, I was like, yeah, I know that guy. That's a guy on their defense I can name. That's pretty cool. So
Yeah,
he,
no, for sure.
he he had a great year for them. They were kind of a turnover machine, and he was a big part of that. Jared, can you tell us about the AFC QBs for a second, please, while I keep scrolling.
Yeah, AFC quarterback hosers Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, and Drake May will all not be participating in the games. So they called up some real quarterbacks to actually come in and play the Pro Bowl. Now, granted, they chose the wrong quarterback from the best quarterback team in the NFL. But not only is 40-year-old gunslinger Joe Flacco in at quarterback, but his protege, his apprentice, future NFL legend, and redeemer of my ill-fated dark horse for Rookie of the Year, Pro Bowler Shadur Sanders stepping in for a dominant showcase in the AFC Pro Bowl competition. Let's go. Joe Flacco and Shadur Sanders will be representing the AFC at quarterback. Just as a reminder, at the NFC, replacing Sam Darnold and Matthew Stafford will be Jared Goff and Jalen Hurts, who will be playing alongside Dak Prescott. So again, on one side we have Jared Goff, Jalen Hurts, and Dak Prescott, and then on that other side there we have Shadur Sanders and Joe Flacco. So a lot of parity in the skills competitions, I expect.
If you're wondering why we didn't do a whole Pro Bowl episode where we talk about the Pro Bowl and the skills and the games, this is why. This shit doesn't matter. Joe Flacco and Shador Sanders suited up for the same team at quarterback. That's
Yeah.
that's fucking crazy. What are we doing here? Uh,
No, it's absolutely wild. Absolutely wild.
I'll make
Especially
two
because
other.
Joe Flacco didn't
No, go
even
ahead.
play in the second half of the year after Joe
Right after
Burrow
Joe Burrow
came
came back.
in.
Yeah.
So he wasn't even like a full season. I mean, I guess Tyler Huntley's made a Pro Bowl, so who knows? But yeah, it's just silly. I think that they should I honestly, you know what? Here's what I think they should do. I think they should just go ahead and make the Pro Bowl game, like the actual flag football, whatever. If you're going to keep that, fine. Just make it positionless, and then
Mhm.
instead of replacing the people who can't play, you just have less people show up because it's to the point now where you're
There are
diluting
a couple of
replacement.
positions that have like less guys than the initial amount because so many people withdrew and they just didn't replace them.
And I think it's okay to just do that. I think like that's fine. I get if you maybe have to have one quarterback, fine. But maybe the league just takes a little more privilege and says, okay, we as a do what Adam Silver can kind of do with the All Star in the NBA and just say like, okay, well, wasn't it crazy when Philip Rivers came back? We're just gonna make Philip Rivers the Pro Bowl quarterback because everyone would be into that. I don't think anyone's lining up behind Shador. I mean, was
Yeah.
AFC play in AFC quarterback play this bad? I mean, where's Trevor Lawrence? Was he not available? Um,
Yeah, probably a lot of declinations as you go down the line, I imagine, would be my guess. But
yeah, it's just I like go all in or don't, right? If you're doing like this backup thing, have the Pro Bowl be like the best backups in the league or something and save the All Pro nominations for the stars. I don't know. It's a broken system. I think the All-Star game concept is like broken now
it
across
it
sports.
it yeah, it doesn't work in any league. I will say the league that it probably is most successful in is baseball. I don't know if they still do this, but I know at one time the baseball All-Star game decided who got home field advantage in the World Series.
That might still be true. And
which is
that
kind of crazy.
it's kind of crazy. I also feel like it's just like it's not such a huge advantage that an obviously better team wouldn't still win on the road, but it's a big enough
hmm
reward that it actually affects the viability of your season and gives you a reason to play.
hmm
Um, Obviously the Super Bowl happens at a neutral site. Maybe you make like a, you do something with seventh round picks where the tiebreaker between any NFC and AFC team in seventh round picks goes to the winning team of the winning conference of the Pro Bowl. I don't know. It's something really tiny, but
hmm
anyway, any other Pro Bowlers you want to mention?
I don't really. I mean, Travis Kelce had the most votes 2 years in a row. I guess that is worth mentioning. Um, I have a guy I want to talk about, but it's more for the All Pro consideration than Pro Bowl. I guess they kind of are go hand in hand. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of names on here that are not surprising, and then there's a couple names, mostly as replacements. So it's like, okay, um, that's weird. So. Yeah, I mean the Pro Bowl is kind of a joke. So I'm. Oh, you know what? I'll make this comment about the Pro Bowl and the All Pro 'cause it does play a little bit into both of them. I think playing time has to matter a little more. I feel like there are some guys on these teams that's like, and you kind of talked about it, like Joe Flacco, for example, where it's like that guy was injured for half the year. Like that guy was
Yeah.
not playing. Like Brock Bowers initially a tight end nominee for the AFC. It's like he was so injured for so much of the year that that's shocking.
Yeah. I certainly think also, yeah. And the fact that Pro Bowls work in a contract incentives probably make that something too. I don't know. It's broken. I will say about the All Pro players, honestly felt pretty chalk. Not a lot of surprising names. Will Reichard for the Vikings was the first team kicker over Brandon Aubrey. I thought that was kind of neat.
I'd like to
Um,
throw Cam Little into this conversation, by the way.
I looked up Cam Little and I was wondering why, and I wonder if it's the part of the game that I don't think we're super qualified to evaluate, which is like the kickoff game. And
I
I wonder if,
yeah, I'm sure not the guy to ask about that one.
yeah, I was kind of looking at this and going like, okay, why would Cam Little not make the All Pro team? I wonder if the kickoff form for Reichard and Aubrey is strong. And granted, Aubrey was the NFC Pro Bowl kicker, like I totally get that, whatever. Um, and Reichard was very accurate. I wondered if there was more to his game than we were seeing.
Yeah,
I also think you should not be allowed to be a first team and second team All Pro. And they did that
I
with Bijan.
I agree with this take. I understand it. Bijan is a running back, but he also catches a lot of passes. I get it, but yes, I think you land in one spot. You don't get to do both.
Yeah, especially like respectfully, I think that like if this was a year where there were like three elite running backs, like
hmm
maybe, but I think, and I'm not necessarily trying to be a homer, but Jahmyr Gibbs had an incredibly elite season and has a
Yeah,
reputation as both a rushing and receiving running
yeah.
back, and it feels not that hard to just go ahead and give him the nod here.
He's a
Um,
homer. He's a homer.
he's a homer, but also I just think it. Why are we taking a slot away from someone else to give Bijan double All Pro? I just think it's kind of silly.
No, it's super fair. You have a point here that I want to bring up with last year's All-Pro teams, Lamar being the QB on the first team, Josh Allen being the QB on the second team. Yet Josh Allen was the guy that won MVP. So Matt Stafford being the first team quarterback and Drake May being the second All-Pro quarterback. Does that mean that we kind of have an inkling towards who the MVP could be? I guess history will tell us no.
I think Stafford is my MVP, and I hope that he wins it. But yeah, that's why I flagged that. Because the article I was reading was like, oh, isn't this interesting? Looks like Matthew might have to look out. Whatever. I think that uh, to me, I hope that Drake May like the way we've talked about him in the playoffs makes it pretty clear that he has not been the MVP of his team. He has been a VVP, a very valuable player, but the role the Patriots defense has taken in keeping them in games and forcing mistakes from their opponent just feels like a bit of a false operation to then give the crown to May for how they've played.
Yeah, to be candid, I don't really like my options. Like if these are my two MVP choices, I don't know how we got here, and I don't love that. I don't
I
know.
think a lot of the QBs just kind of got banged up, and you know they a lot of defensive identity teams made a pretty deep run, like the Broncos. I don't think Bo Nix was ever in the conversation for this.
Yeah,
Um, so obviously with Lamar not having a great year, Mahomes getting injured and
sure.
not having a great year, so taking away some of the maybe less obvious candidates, maybe this would have been a nice year to. I honestly think like this could have been Jonathan Taylor's year if the Colts made like the divisional round of the playoffs to suddenly put a running back on the map. But
Yeah,
the way the Colts season fell apart, um, I don't think it was there.
yeah. No, that makes sense. Other All-Pro things I think are worth mentioning. Ray Davis as the kick returner and first team seems strange. I don't know. Maybe I'm sleeping on his kick returning ability.
I guess it's kick versus punt
Yeah,
return.
and they had Chimere DK as a punt returner, which was cool. He's a rookie. That's awesome. I know a lot of this hype came on late, but I'm surprised that Raheed Shaheed doesn't make an appearance here.
Mhm.
Um, Kavante Turpin ended up being second team. That's like I just know that guy for being a returner, so that kind of makes sense. I'll shout out Chris Olave making a second team appearance for the Saints. I think that he's an underrated player in a lot of aspects. And maybe
I
not
That was
as
totally off my radar, so I'm shocked to hear that that happened, but good for him.
yeah. Jared, do you know which of these All Pros are going to be playing in the NBA All-Star game?
I know Amon-Ra St. Brown is.
Amon-Ra St. Brown is one of them.
There's
Um,
multiple.
I'm, yes. Oh, I remember who it is. He's actually not an All-Pro at all. He wasn't even in the Pro Bowl, but he is a receiver in the AFC. I'll give you that.
Who's an AFC receiver with enough clout?
He's also Unc. He's old.
Oh, I saw this. It's Keenan Allen.
Yes. Keenan Allen. Yes, yes, yes. I'm glad Unc immediately refreshed your. You're like, ah, yes. I
He's
know
a
that old
old.
man.
Oh yeah, that old guy. Because the I will say at receiver right now, there's not a lot of overlap between old and well known.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, a lot of guys in their prime for sure. Um, Cam Hayward, still an all-pro. He's 1,000 years old. Um, yeah, and then I'm gonna give you. Oh, also, Derwin James was put in all-pro as a slot corner. He's not a slot corner. That's just not the position
certainly.
he plays. Correct.
You mean Pro Bowl safety Derwin James is the slot corner for
Correct.
interesting. Okay.
Um, yeah. Last thing I wanted to bring up here. If you have the list of corners in front of you, that would be great. I want to give you some stats. I want
Am
you.
I looking at first team or second team?
It does no, no. Look at both. Have it. So give yourself some options.
Okay,
Um,
sure.
so I'm going to give you some stats, and I want to see if you can identify who this is, because I think it's worth mentioning. Um, this player shadowed in a league high 14 games on receivers, 85% of their routes at least. Okay.
Yep.
That makes sense. Okay. I'm gonna give you the run. I'm gonna give you the rundown of stats. Here's the average. Averaged for those 14 games, 6 targets, 3.3 catches, so about 50% completion rate, 44 yards a game, zero point 0.2 touchdowns. He gave up 3 total touchdowns in these 14 games. Um, can I give you some names of the people?
Yeah, that'll help.
Yeah. Um, okay. Zay Flowers. 7 targets, 2 catches, 6 yards. Jerry Judy, 6 targets, 2 catches, 17 yards.
Okay.
Um, Travis Hunter, 6 targets, 3 catches, 22 yards. J-Mo, 1 catch, 9 yards.
Well, they played the Lions. Okay, interesting.
Robadunze, three targets, 0 catches. Um, Other names on here. Travis Hunter, Justin Jefferson, Cortland Sutton, Romeo Doubs, DK Metcalf, Stephon Diggs, Jalen Waddle, Michael Wilson. The most yards was Michael Wilson with 89, and he had a touchdown, and he also had 10 targets and only got the ball 5 times. So basically, this player was a pretty good shutdown corner.
Are they one of the people on this list?
They're not.
Wow. I was gonna say it's Derwin James. It must be. Is
Uh,
this who would that be
you,
then?
you
Who played with
you
them?
you looked right through my deception.
I was just I was thinking about the list of teams and I was like I don't know if there's anyone
Yeah,
who matches. I was thinking maybe it's the Eagles, but I feel like the Eagles weren't clamping down to that degree, and I would have remembered Eagles Patriots. Was it? I'm gonna make a just crazy like psycho guess out of nowhere here.
yeah.
Just like Keyshawn Nixon of the Packers or something.
Not Keyshawn Nixon of the Packers. Pro Bowl replacement Keyshawn Nixon of the Packers.
That's well, I was like,
We
okay,
should
that's on
say.
the radar, right? Who was
No,
this?
this. Okay, I'll give you one more hint. This is a notoriously bad defense this year.
So Dallas.
Wasn't Dallas, but I see how you got there.
Notoriously bad defense this year. Who else used to have a defense that was like ugh? Played the Cardinals and the Lions. I can't think of too many teams who did that. And the Bears?
AFC
Oh, it's AFC.
North.
AFC North. Hang on, hang on, hang on. Are those the Jalen Ramsey stats or something? Is that
Those
what
are
you're
not the Jalen Ramsey stats. That would be crazy.
that would be crazy.
Safety Jalen Ramsey.
Is this a name I would know? Is this
I don't know. I actually don't know. This is Bengals DJ Turner.
Oh, interesting. Pretty deep cut there.
Yeah, he had an elite year for an otherwise pretty not good defense. So I think that's probably why his name went under the radar here. But I mean, you can't argue with the stats.
Props to him. I mean, I guess you don't need to attack DJ Turner when the rest of their team is so
Correct,
incapable,
correct.
but he's pretty young, right? Is he like a rookie?
I think so.
Um, he's barely younger than me.
Hmm.
2023 draft, so I guess a few years. Good for him. Nice little guessing game there. I had no shot.
Yeah, I just saw those stats somewhere and I was like, wow, that is interesting that this guy didn't really get any recognition either in the Pro Bowl or All Pro for what seems to be a pretty good corner season. I can't say I've looked at the stat line for all the corners, but
Um, yeah. That's a nice name to bring up, and maybe someone to watch if the Bengals defense is even a little bit better. Thanks for listening to episode 25. I hope you enjoy the Super Bowl. We'll talk to you next week.